Welcome to Ride to Success, the podcast that takes you on a learning journey to a more productive, creative, and active life. In the podcast, I explore cycling's global trends, community needs, and innovative business strategies. Today, I chatted with Sarah Gigante, a name that resonates across the cycling world for a remarkable resilience, useful triumphs, and inspiring journey through adversity. From discovering the joy of cycling at a tender age to standing atop the podium as a national champion at just 18, Sarah's story is a testament to the power of passion and perseverance. Beyond their accolades, it's their battle against injuries, heart problems, and the mental challenges of competitive sports that truly define her as a character. Join me in this learning journey as Sarah shares the highs and lows of her career, the significance of support systems, her engagement with the community, and their aspirations for the future of women's cycling. But before we get into the podcast, ladies and gentlemen, please remember to subscribe and review the podcast wherever you listen to it. It helps me to grow it massively. And I'll be forever thankful. Now, back to the podcast. Welcome, Sarah, to Ride to Success. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I've listened to a few of these podcasts and I really enjoy them.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I'm interested to have you on the podcast because your career has been characterized by very successful victories. But not only that, your ability to overcome adversity. You have shown time and time again resilience in the face of challenges. And I kind of wanted to use this as kind of a topic that I want to come again and again throughout this conversation because I think it's important to share and for the people listening to understand a bit more in kind of that fighting spirit perhaps that lies within you.
Yeah. I like to do things in extremes. Really, really high periods, really, really low periods.
So I kind of wanted to for people that might not know you very well, wanted to give them the opportunity to get to know you a bit more. And so can you tell us a little bit more about how you first got into cycling, your love for cycling, how it began, and like what drew you into the sport?
Yeah, so I'm 23 now, but I started racing my bike when I was 8 years old on the velodrome. And the reason I started racing, I was the first one in my family to find out about cycling as a sport because in Australia, unlike in Belgium, we don't grow up racing bikes. It's actually, I'd never heard of anyone racing bikes. So yeah, the reason I started was because I would go on a week-long or 9-day-long camping trip for schools and families where the riders would, ride their bikes from one town to the other each day, normally anywhere between 50 kilometers and 130 kilometers per day, and trucks would take our bags for us and then we'd just pitch up the tents and then one big moving party. It was awesome. There were musicians and clowns and people teaching us acrobatic tricks each afternoon after we got in from the ride. So yeah, it was awesome fun. And I started doing that with my family when I was 5 years old on a trailer bike.
Very young.
Yeah, I was just on the trailer bike though. So I remember I did it when I was 5 and 6 on the trailer bike, and then on a tandem when I was 7. And I always with my mum, although sometimes a couple of times my siblings came, and maybe once my dad came. I can't really remember, but definitely mum was always towing me. And when I was really little, sometimes I'd feel a bit lazy. So on the trailer bike, you can just not pedal, and that's fine. You can just sit on the back coasting while poor mum's pulling us along.
Yeah, exactly.
On the tandem, if mum was pedaling, so 99% of the time, then I would have to pedal. So when I got tired, I would just put my legs up on the top tube so that she wouldn't even know. I'd just be chilling out with my legs up on the tube, and sometimes some riders coming past us would give me away. I'm like, hey, she's not even pedaling back there. But in saying that, although I did like taking my breaks sometimes, well, poor mum did all the work. I also loved doing the sprints when mum said, oh, quick, Sarah, there's a school group just ahead, or there's this hill that I really need your help for. Then I'd go full gas, just 1 minute max effort. So yeah, I really enjoyed the long days on the bike even back then, and definitely trying to keep up with the school groups. That was a really fun
Wow.
time. And yeah, when I finished the Great Victorian Bike Ride when I was 7, so we're talking I don't know, 600 kilometers over the 9
Wow.
days with a rest day. So quite a long way. And I said to my mum, I'm sick of looking at your backside. I want to do it on my own bike. Maybe I wasn't quite so polite how I said it, but I wanted to do it on my own bike, but I was only going to be 8 years old, and we didn't like we were an active outdoorsy family, but that mainly just meant, we our holidays would be camping at the beach, maybe some hiking, like right around the
Yeah.
block, that kind of thing. Not not hardcore cycling. So mum just googled cycling clubs for kids in Melbourne, and yeah, up came Brunswick Cycling Club, and actually it was a long way away. We lived right on the outskirts of Melbourne, and Brunswick is in the city, but it said it was the best club for like being family friendly and fun first. So mum took me to the velodrome with my little mountain bike in the back of the car, and when we got to the velodrome, Dave Morgan is the man that runs it, and he took one look at my bike and he said, "Gail, you need a real bike." So he hands me this little thing without brakes, with only one gear, and
Oh.
it's 3 races. The first race is a time trial, just one lap of the track, and it's called the 30-second challenge because the fastest kids, we're talking maybe 6-year-olds to 15-year-olds, the fastest kids could do it in under 30 seconds. And based on how fast you went in that one lap time trial, that's how we were graded for the next 2 bunch races. And I was put in the very, very slowest grade because even though I was quite a few years older than the smallest kids, maybe they were even 4-year-olds. But I took like 1 minute 28 seconds to do one lap of this 333-meter track because it was my very first lap.
Of course, yeah.
We got there at 9 a.m. and it said like racing 9 till 12. So we got there at 9 and I missed the warm up before 9 o'clock. So first lap, working out how to get around the track without brakes, and yeah, it was
Yeah,
awesome.
on a bike that you didn't know how to
Yeah, it was
ride.
Yeah. So I
Mhm.
did drop down from 1 minute 28 quite quickly, but still, I think I hovered around a minute for a long time. And actually, the sad thing is, I never broke 30 seconds because I stopped going when I was only, I don't know, 11 or so. Then I moved on to the indoor velodrome. And yeah, that's really sad because now, well, especially because now my little cousin goes. He's 11, I think, about to turn 12, and I'm worried he's going to crack 30 seconds soon. And I never did.
Oh, there's no niggling at you that what if
Yeah,
I could
exactly.
have smashed that 30 seconds. I mean, so I guess that shows perhaps a little bit of your kind of mentality that just trying to be the best you can, obviously.
Oh, I had my own grade for a while when I did move to the indoor velodrome. Because
Mhm.
this summer clinic for the little kids and the new kids, it only went until March or so, and I only started in February. So I loved it from the very start. Like I'd done swimming and I'd done basketball before that, but I was always on the swimming was fine, and I actually kept going a few times a week until I was 13 or so, just as a second sport. But with basketball and other sports I tried quite a few. I liked them, but I was always on the bench because I was not very good. So it's not as fun when you're just watching everyone else play. And I just
Exactly. Yeah.
love cycling so much because, well, actually, it's hard to remember why I love it. I was going to say I loved it because the more hard work you put in, the more you get out. But I mean, that's probably not what was going through an 8-year-old's mind. So I just love the bike, flying around the velodrome, meeting all these new friends. And I was so devastated when I came to this clinic in March and everyone was like, "Oh, it's the last one. See you in November." And I'm like, "Wait, what? I just finally found this sport that I absolutely love. I can't just not do it until November. That's insane." So yeah, I went to the indoor velodrome, the wooden velodrome nearby, and on the very first time I tried it, it was just me going around with one of the senior coaches. He was told, "Okay, take this little kid around. Good luck." And I crashed 3 times in one session. I just kept sliding off. I was so slow that I just like slide off. But I didn't hurt myself, so I just kept getting back up. And Mum told me when I was a bit older, when I finally did get around the bend once and I did one full lap without sliding off, then they took me off straight away because they're like, okay, good. She's done one lap. Let's leave it on a positive note. But yeah, I kept coming back. And even though I had my own grade for a while, so at the indoor racing on Tuesday nights, there were 3 bunch races for everyone each night. No time trial, except for me, because I was too slow for everyone else. So it was A grade, B grade, C grade, D grade, Sarah grade for a couple of months. So I just did 3 time trials a week until I was finally fast enough to keep up with the D graders. So yeah, I just loved it
Right.
though. So I did track and road all the way until I was 18, and I could never pick which one I loved more. By the end of track season, then I'd be hanging out for road season. By the end of road,
Right.
I'd be dying to race on the track again. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously you got the bug to start cycling, and you kind of persevered. And well, obviously you are naturally talented, so you kind of started going through the ranks, and until kind of your perhaps what is your breakout moment, winning the national championships at 18, a very remarkable achievement. And I wanted to kind of understand, do you think there were like particular key factors to achieving success at such a young age?
Mm. Yeah, that was definitely one of the best moments of my life, but it's also definitely the most shocking moment of my life. Like, I don't think I believed what had happened for at least a month. I know normally, like, big surprises, maybe you don't believe it that night, maybe a few days at last. But yeah, for a whole month, I was just pinching myself. Like, did that really happen in my first race? Especially the Australian Nationals, they're in January. So I'd literally just moved out of under 19s. And I was so worried that I wouldn't, well, not worried, but I was nervous that I wouldn't be able to finish because I'd heard all the stories of the laps around Mount Buninyong and how hard it is just to get around. I'd seen my brother race it too in the under 23s, and yeah, it's a brutal circuit, especially if you're not the strongest. And I certainly wasn't the strongest. So yeah, that was just a crazy day and a crazy month. And I think what led up to that, like I say, I wasn't the strongest. I wasn't the strongest. I got in the early breakaway, but I was still quite strong. And I think it was just because I'd been absolutely loving riding my bike for as long as I could remember. But yeah, I always focused on having fun. And I didn't even have a coach at that stage. I had a coach when I was 14 and 15, maybe for just under a year, I think it was.
Okay.
But then I went back to just coaching myself, especially with school. I was really studious. I finished my degree now, so I'm no longer studious. But I mean, as a person, I am. But I don't spend all my
Yeah.
time studying now. But in year 12, which was, I just finished that a month before that nationals win, I took that really seriously. So I didn't have time to do like, follow an exact program, 3 hours on this day. Well, if I had a test the next day, then I'd just do like a 45-minute ergo full gas instead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really just raced crits. I found that fun. It was a nice break from studying. Raced a little bit of track, did lots of bunch rides in Australia. They don't really seem to exist here, but in Australia we have the best bunch rides, and they're just like flat out races with your mates. It's so good. You just sprint to the top of all the hills, and yeah, I was just having a blast, and I worked really hard, but it didn't feel like hard work.
Can you remember what was going through your mind when you attacked to make the winning move?
Yeah, so when I got in the early breakaway, I think it was the very first lap, and that was because I really wanted a head start on the bunch. Because as I said, I was nervous that I wasn't sure how hard it would be. Would I be able to finish the race? So I thought, well, so that I don't have to follow Amanda Spratt when she's attacking up the hill, I'll just get ahead of Amanda Spratt. So
Exactly. Yeah.
at least I have a head start, So I got in the early breakaway straight away, and the race is just over 100 kilometers. So 100 kilometers, to go. I was out the front with 6 others, I think it was, and we had a couple pros in there, like Chloe Hosking and Sarah Gigante and Sarah Roy. So I was already really excited because I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm racing with my idols out the front of the national road race. This is insane. So already, like, I'm just excited to be there. I didn't waste my energy because in the back of my mind, I still thought, oh, maybe I could get a medal in the under 23 race. So I wasn't going crazy attacking for like the QOM points, but actually, I didn't think other national championships seem to have these, but we have like a sprint classification and a QOM classification within the national road race. So every few laps when there was a sprint, our group was rolling through really well together, working well. So we weren't sprinting, but I always made sure to do my turns so that I would cross the line first to get the sprint points. So apart from that, yeah, I was just thinking, let's see how long our group lasts. Hopefully we can not get caught to at least a few laps to go, and then by then the group will be smaller. There'll be fewer under 23s left in the race, and there's less chance of getting pulled out because they are quite strict with pulling riders out once you get dropped.
Yeah.
So yeah, to start with, I was just thinking this is great. Maybe I can get the sprint jersey. Let's see how long this lasts. And then it was maybe Sarah Gillo with 2 or 3 laps to go started going pretty hard up the climb. And I was the only one that could keep up with her comfortably. Sarah Roy was doing well too, but she was getting gapped a little bit, and then the others had all dropped off. So I was like, this is crazy. Like, I'm keeping up with Sarah Gillo, and I thought I would be one of the ones getting dropped first from the breakaway. So I was like, gee, my legs are pretty good today. So I was feeling excited about that, but I still wasn't even considering like winning the race until with just over a lap to go. Sarah had started sitting on by then because she had teammates like Spratty coming from behind. So Sharon and I were doing the work. And then I went through a corner, a bit of an off-camber roundabout. I went through it with Shara on my wheel, and Shara just lost my wheel a little bit just from the cornering. And I looked behind as I came out of the corner, and I saw a little gap. And then I thought, hang on a minute. Shara has Sarah sitting on her wheel, and you know how it is. Even if you let the gap open, it's annoying to be the one to have to close it with someone just sitting on. So I was like, oh, maybe if I just go for it, I have this gap because I'm never going to win.
Okay.
I may as well go for it, and then they can look at each other, and I'll just be out the front doing
decide who to chase.
Yeah, well, they worked that out. So that's what happened. I just went as hard as I could out of that corner, even though it was not planned at all. I just, as soon as I saw I had 5 meters, I was like, oh, well, I've got a gap. Let's go. And yeah, I just started time trialing, and I heard the bell. I think that's 9 or maybe 10 kilometers to go. And then the hill started, and I was like, oh my gosh, I already went full gas coming to the bottom of the hill. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm winning the race. This is insane. And then I looked up at the highway. I was like, oh, how am I going to get up this? But yeah, I had so much adrenaline, and the crowd were going crazy. And I didn't even change out of the big chain ring, but that's because I'm a grinder. I never seem to change out of it. My coach is always groaning about my cadence. But yeah, I just went as hard as I could up the hill, and then once I got over the hill, then I knew, just some more pain to go, and then the race is done. But then in saying that, even though I did start to get goosebumps coming into the final few hundred meters, once I really was like, oh, there is no one coming. And I could see the finish line with the flag, but there was still a part of me that was like, oh, is this the last lap? Surely not. I know I've done the right distance. They rang the bell last time. I can see the finish flag. Everyone's screaming. When the last time the commissaire came up and gave me the gap, then it seemed like this was the last lap. But is it really? I was just so shocked. So yeah, I did sleep in the green and gold jersey that night.
Very well. Is it? Yeah, they're gonna really. Sometimes you see cyclists just get excited and miss the bell and just cross the finish line and realize, actually, it's not the last lap.
Yeah, that's not a mistake you want to make.
Exactly, yeah. So I wanted to kind of and now trying to understand a bit more about kind of how you, because obviously your career has been through several setbacks, and I wanted to understand a bit how you have navigated these setbacks. I mean, you have faced significant health challenges, including heart problems and injuries, and I wanted to understand from more a personal point of view, how have these experiences influenced your approach to life, and also to competition? Like, what has been your approach?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been since that race, actually, it has been a few up and down years. But I think what I've taken away most is number one is to like build a support network and don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. I think when I had my first big setback, well, actually, my first big setback was the year before that national win. Was I broke both my arms at once when I was descending in a race,
Oh
and that was awful because I was
God.
doing year 12, which is in Australia, like the last year of high school. And as I said, I was really studious and I wanted to get a good score. And then my poor mum was having to like scribe all my homework for me. And, like I was doing chemistry, but it's fine like writing it down. But then when you're trying to do like, 2x plus c over 2, well, is it 2x plus c all over 2, or is like the c over 2? Like it started getting really tricky, and the Latin as well, trying to scribe that. Oh my gosh. So and then also I couldn't like shower myself. I couldn't bathe myself at the start. Like, so that was a bad setback, but I got through that okay. And I think I remember still my teammate at the time said, "Sarah, it sucks now, but one day this will just be a bad memory." And I remember thinking at the time, this is so painful. Like it's just horrible. Like I wanted to go to Junior Worlds, which were just a few months later. And I was in the middle of year 12 and my elbow really, really hurt. The other bones were okay, but that elbow was awful. So at the time, I remember thinking, just a bad memory, but it works. So then, since then, I've always been like, yeah, remember what Jenny said? One day this will just be a bad memory. And every single time, that's come true. Like it's a bad period at the start, but one day you just look back on it and it's a nice,
Yeah.
tough story to tell for a podcast. So, yeah, so
Mhm.
the first time I had a setback in Europe, again, it was a few broken bones at once. So broke my fibula, collarbone, and elbow in flesh alone in 2021. And then I
Mm.
had also just moved to Europe and I was moving to Girona and living by myself for the first time. And I was quite stubborn. I thought, all right, I can do this all myself. It will be fine. But I really did struggle those couple of months, even just trying to hobble to the supermarket with my crutch and my sling and then a backpack on one shoulder. Like I was not
Oh
having
God.
fun at
Yeah.
all. So yeah, since then I've definitely learned to ask for help, and if you ask for help like all the time, there will be people so kind and willing to help you. You just need to ask for it. So that's number one. And then also number two is to make the most of the moment. So enjoy what you're doing. I already did really love cycling ever since I started it. Like I've loved it. But even more so now, like the other day, it was absolutely pouring in Girona. Okay, maybe this was just stupid of me, but I still went out because I'm like, hey, I'm healthy. I love riding my bike. Okay, it's like really wet and cold, but hey, I'm healthy enough to train. I want to go train. So yeah, maybe I probably should have
Yeah.
had a recovery day that day, but I've definitely noticed without meaning to be grateful for being healthy and able to be here training every day and like training for big races. I've really noticed like just how grateful I am for the chance. I don't like, yeah, I don't ever look at my program and I'm like, oh, 5 hours. I don't feel like that. I'm like, oh, okay, 5 hours. That's a challenge, especially with those efforts. But how cool is it that I'm able to go for a 5 hour ride and this is my job? So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. The today's pain is just that's it. It will go away, and kind of you just have to think of it as temporary.
Yeah, exactly.
And think of a bigger goal.
Yeah, make the most of the good moments, and then just try and get through the bad moments, and remember they won't last forever.
Exactly. Well, that's a very good lesson to keep in mind, and also combine that with the fact, that being grateful as well for what you have is also very important, to recognize what and value what you have accomplished or what you're doing. And you also said it, like, people perhaps will look up to you and say, well, you are living the dream. You're riding a bike for work. You're enjoying it, and that's kind of that. Young girls looking up to you, that they will see you as a role model. So I guess that's also important to validate that.
Yeah, thank you. That's very nice. Yeah, it would be wonderful if I can even help one girl or boy chase their dream. I remember when I was a kid, as soon as I'd said I didn't really realize cycling was a sport, but as soon as I did, then yeah, role models, they really, even if you don't know them, they can really make a huge difference. And I had a few different ones over the years. Especially as I realized what kind of rider I was not. So I started off absolutely wanting to be like Anna Meares, and it didn't take me too long to realize that I am about as far away as from Anna Meares as you can get. So then I moved on to Annette Edmondson, and Nettie's great, but then I still realized I'm nothing like Annette Edmondson either. And yeah, I think a bit later, Grace Brown, because she was my teammate on a club team in Australia, and then she went professional, and I got to see that. That was really cool. That was the first time I was like, wow, like no one around me just went pro. That this is her job. She's living in Europe now. And then also, yeah, it's really cool. We have quite a few different pros from Australia, but yeah, Spratty was always my favorite, I think.
Yeah, it's always, when you see, I guess I don't have that experience, but from what you tell me, like, and from recognizing the importance as well of role models, when you see, and especially in cycling, especially in cycling, where it's more difficult to perhaps coming from women's cycling, it's more difficult for young girls to see the steps that you need to take to get to be a professional. But that applies to, I think, men's and women's. It's not like when you have examples of perhaps football or basketball, where there's more support at the grassroots level. It's very important for young children to see the role models go through the ranks, show that it's possible as well to achieve that level.
Pathway is the most important thing, I think. Like, even though all through juniors, ever since I started, I always wanted to be my best, and I always have been so competitive. Like, don't try and play Monopoly with me. Not because I'm good at Monopoly, just because if you're better than me, it will not end bad. It will not end well. It will end in a tantrum. I tried to grow out of it, but yeah, me and Monopoly don't get along.
Okay.
I've always
been warned.
Yeah, exactly. You've been warned. But even though, I was always like riding my bike as much as I could and loved it, loved racing. I never, in a way I wanted to be a pro cyclist, but on the other hand, I didn't really know what that meant, or like, was it possible? Like, how does that even happen? It just kind of seemed like the Wild West. So I think that's why seeing Grace actually turn pro, someone around me turn pro, that was really cool. And now it's great. We have more and more Australians coming over, and actually Girona is kind of a mini Australia with the number of Aussies coming over. But yeah, I think that's one of the best things about my new team, AG Insurance Sudal. Just last weekend, we were in Italy for Trofeo Alfredo Binda, a world tour race. And we were sharing an apartment with the under-19 team, and they had their own Nations Cup in the morning. Actually, we ended up 11th with Kim, but they ended up 3rd. So yeah, hats off to them. They beat us. But yeah, it was just so cool we didn't spend that much time together, but even just like sitting at the same table for meal times, I think that's awesome. Just, I was in awe of how professional they were for, how old are they? Like 16, 17, 18. and they're already traveling around Europe racing their bikes really fast. I thought that was so cool. But also from their perspective, I think it's awesome. They can, they can see us sitting right next to them, and okay, maybe it will take a few years to get into the World Tour team from where they are, but there is a pathway, and perfect
Exactly. Yeah.
pathway. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and especially with the team that you are at the moment, the co-founder and co-manager Natasha Naven has really set a clear path with under 19s, under 23s, and the World Tour level team. So she has created a path. She created a program that can pick junior riders and take them all throughout the ranks to a pro level. And even if they don't carry on the with the AG insurance, the team, it also is already building the next generation of women
Yeah,
pro
for
level
sure.
riders.
And I think also not just, already having an under-19 team and a World Tour team, that would already be fantastic and more than nearly all other teams. But to have that
Yeah,
intermediate team, the under-23 team, I think that's so crucial. Like in women's cycling, under-23s is often just, skipped over, and it's like, okay, as soon as you're 18, you're out there racing Demi Vollering, Miriam Vos, that's it. And then, you can see why so many riders stop cycling as soon as they come out of juniors. It's already like, you have to start training more. It's expensive. You might want to go to university. Your parents are probably sick of paying for everything by now, and it's just getting more expensive. Everything like that makes it already hard. But then to also suddenly be racing against the world's best when only a
yeah,
teenager,
exactly. Yeah.
it's
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty hard to learn how to still race and how to still have confidence. So getting to do slightly smaller races, and still there's super hard competition at the races they do, but they're not just getting chucked into world tour races, or not just feeling like they're the worst ones on the team. They're actually doing an awesome job racing together, racing to still win or to still be part of the race, still attack. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, provides that step in between that you can't. I mean, even though there has been a trend, perhaps in the male racing side, where you see a lot of perhaps very talented juniors jumping immediately the pro level side, it's important to have teams that are dedicated just to under 23s at all levels, because
I
it
think,
creates that stepping stone.
on both men's and women's sides, there are like amazing young riders that have come out and smashed everyone from when they were really young. We have some
Yeah,
too.
but
They're so impressive, but they are the outliers. That's why they're so special.
exactly.
So you have to
Mm-hmm.
think about the other, 100 riders coming out and just struggling to finish, and they're the ones that
Exactly.
we need to keep.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Very well said. So, kind of, I wanted to. You mentioned earlier on about the support systems. You mentioned about not being afraid. The importance that you found in relying and asking for help throughout your several setbacks through the injuries. And this is kind of something that is often highlighted in sports. You have an athlete, an elite athlete, but behind the scenes you have teams supporting that athlete to perform at their best level. And can you please just share a little bit about perhaps the support network that you have, the role that your family plays? Um, can you just give us a bit of insight into your kind of network of
Yeah,
people that enable you to be the best possible, in the best possible shape, in the best version of yourself?
yeah, I'm really lucky. I have a lot of people, so I can't even list them all. But number one is definitely my mum. She's amazing. So mum and I are super close because even though I have two siblings, they're 7 and 9 years older than I am. So they moved out when I was maybe 12, 13. And then my parents split up when I was younger. So I just lived with my mum and our cat. So yeah, we've been like really good friends for a long time, and she's there for me in the good moments, which is really special. But even more importantly, she's always there for me in the tough moments. And yeah, I don't know how I would have got through the last few years without her, even though I know she's getting older, but I think as well as age, I think I'm the cause of a lot of the grey hairs. So sorry, Mum. Yeah, my mum's been incredible. Also, my coach, he couldn't coach me for 2 of the last years because I had to have a team coach, but he's back coaching me now. So Dylan Lindsay, and even though he wasn't my coach, he was still, one of the people messaging me most often just as a friend, just checking in on me. Yeah, I wasn't even riding for some of the time, and he'd be asking how I was. So definitely nothing to do with cycling, just a really great human, and a lot of my riding buddies as well back in Melbourne. Yeah, it's funny. I started doing this bunch ride. I think it's my favorite bunch ride. It's called Tour de Burbs, and it's just 1 hour on an evening on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We race around the suburbs, racing up the hills from like 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. once everyone's finished work. And I started doing it when I was 16 or 17 years old. And that's how I ended up with a group of 40-year-old men as like my best friends when I was a 16-year-old girl. So I think that's
Okay.
one of the coolest things about cycling. Like, I have such a variety of friends from all over the world, the different ages, men, women. Like, yeah, it's so cool. I remember actually when I did break my arms in year 12, so I was 17, and I was on all the really strong painkillers in the hospital, and this guy walked in like with this beard. I was like, who even is that? Like, it's nice of them to come visit, but I don't know who he is. And it turns out, like, on the bunch rides, we just smash each other up the hills and then say see you later. We're all wearing helmets and kit, and I've never seen Chris without his helmet on, so I didn't even recognize him at first when he came in the hospital. And it's just how cool cycling is. You just make friends with everyone, and he even came to visit me in hospital. So I have so many people. And then in the last year I got into a bit in a funny order. I got into like the national program before the state program, but now I'm in the Victorian Institute of Sport, and it's great. They have like sports dietitians, even sports psychologists, a strength and conditioning coach who like sends me gym program for overseas, and then my team is super awesome. They have the sports scientists, so even though Dylan coaches me, if we ever have any specific questions about altitude training or not, I haven't done altitude yet, but I'm thinking about trying it. So yeah, we can ask them about heat protocols or anything like that. And then our directors on all my teams, the directors and managers, and even like the Swannies, everyone's just so nice. The mechanics always someone to chat to. I really don't think like it's not like these people are qualified in like being Sarah's support person, but if you just ask for help around
exactly,
you, like, even strangers will help you. Really, like looking back at when I was trying to hobble from home from the shops, I should have just asked like a neighbor or something like that. So yeah, I've learned to just ask for help, and most people are really, really lovely.
Exactly. Well, if you don't ask for help, you don't get it.
Exactly.
You will never know what people. I mean, people are very can be kind. It's a good starting place to have, because it's relying on generosity of people.
For sure. And then when you're in a better position and someone else is injured, then you can be like, hey, I
give
can
it back.
help
Yeah,
you.
exactly. Yeah, and also it's like the fact that cycling in itself as a sport, as a activities, is a great leveler. You are riding together, and it doesn't matter what background you are from. It's just you are able to connect, perhaps in a way that in other settings it is not as straightforward. The freedom that it gives you perhaps creates the right circumstances to enable people to just chat and ask questions and feel free to just engage with each other in a very friendly way.
Yeah, friendly or unfriendly. If you come on these group rides, I don't know. Yeah, we're like best friends for like 80% of the ride, but then that 20% where we go full gas, there's no friendliness.
Maybe after the when if there is a coffee stop at the end, maybe that's the time.
Well, it turns out. So I always went straight home. That's why I didn't recognize Chris without his helmet on. I'd always go straight home and study a little bit and then go to bed. But as I got older, actually, the first time I realized that they went to the pub afterwards was when I was unable to ride because of that temporary heart condition. As you mentioned, I had that in 2021, and
Yeah.
then they were all like, "Sarah, we know you can't ride, but come to the pub after." So I just like turned up at the pub. I don't drink, and I didn't drink, but I think I got like, I don't know, a Coke or something. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is where you guys all go after the ride. So now I know.
Very good. I mean, that's you mentioned you touched a little bit on the setbacks, so the health condition and the injuries as well. I mean, and obviously what this causes then is you're not able to train and you're not able to race, and that's what's driving you perhaps a lot of the time, is that the motivations. I mean, that's in a test in itself for any, because it's just you are the racing, the training part of it, you're not having it. So how do you keep motivated how do you keep yourself motivated during these times where you are unable to race, to train, and just was there like a kind of a mindset that you had to adopt, or like a
Yeah,
mental
so
place that you had to put yourself into?
for sure, I'd say not being able to race and not being able to ride are two definitely different levels. I love racing, but normally if I am able to ride, at least I'm progressing. Like, okay, maybe the next race isn't for 6 months because how unfit I am. Like when I had 6 months off, I was 6 months under 100 beats per minute in 2021. Now that was so hard to come back from because I think normally, I don't know if you know Training Peaks. It's called like a fitness metric or CTL, and normally my CTL just like measures. It's not like actually how fit you are, just like
Yeah.
not quite a random number generator though, so it's a good gauge. Anyway, mine's normally say 160 if I'm fit, and it got down to maybe 7 because I just wasn't
Of
riding.
course.
So,
Yeah,
but
of
as soon as I
course.
started riding, even if I was riding slowly, even if I was unfit, it was fine because I didn't need a race tomorrow to have motivation for the race. Like, even if the race is far away, okay, I'm getting closer every day. Every day I'm better than I was the day before, or I'm better than I was the week before. As you get a bit fitter, then it's harder to get daily PBs. But at the start, I was getting better every single day, and that was wonderful. Now
Yeah,
it's hard.
exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, not being able to ride, that's when I really struggle. And I think, yeah, I don't want to ever have to do 6 months without being able to ride properly again. But what I did do to keep myself sane, or mostly sane, was I just went like full gas into studying. So actually, I was going to take probably a couple more years to complete my bachelor's degree because I was doing 2 to 3 subjects per semester. But then last year I was injured as well, and I just went like full gas because I was going crazy without cycling. So I did like 3 summer subjects in January, which is already like one is an intensive. So I did 3 intensives, and then I did like 5 subjects overloaded in semester 1. And then I was like,
Wow.
whoa, because I started training as well at that time. But at the start of the semester, I wasn't training. So I was like, oh, it'll be fine. And then like halfway through the semester, when it was too late to like stop the subjects, I was like, oh, actually, I'm writing a lot now. This is rather difficult. But it was a great way of, just I was always motivated to do something. And okay, maybe it wasn't motivated to train when I couldn't train. I mean, I was motivated, but I couldn't focus my motivation on training. But I could
Yeah.
like pour it into my uni degree instead. And also, I did some other random things, like when I had the 6 months off with just under 100 beats per minute, then obviously I could still walk because luckily for me, my resting heart rate is very low. So right now it's in the 30s, but I think as I got less fit, it went up to 50, but that still gave me like 50 beats for wiggle room. So I could go for
Yeah,
some nice.
exactly. Yeah.
And I even started a dog walking business. So that
Oh,
was,
really? Wow.
yeah, just like in my local neighborhood, I started walking people's dogs. It was wonderful. Doggy daycare, even. So
Very
yeah,
good.
just
Very entrepreneurial. Yeah.
yeah, not really, but no, I miss the dogs now. Especially Charlie was my favorite dog, and I always wanted a dog when I was growing up, and we could never have one. So yeah, it was a nice 6 months trial period of having what it was like to have a dog. But yeah, I'm just a huge fan of cycling, so I watched every single race. Yeah, from like start to finish, plus anything else I could find to follow my teammates. Because I've been lucky. I've always been on a team, even if I've had these long injuries or illnesses. My teams have been amazing, so always had teammates to cheer for as well.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. You mentioned you finished the degree. What did you took the degree in?
I did it
What was
in
your bachelor?
geography and linguistics. So actually, I started off, yeah, in 2019. I started with a science degree, and I wanted to do maths and computer science. But really quite enjoyed them. I mean, that's why I picked the degree, because I did really like maths and science. But in my second semester, then I did a breadth in linguistics, and I absolutely loved it. Like, I'd come home and I'd try to teach my mum everything about it, just because I was like so excited by what I learned that day. And like, as soon as we had the assignments, then I'd like, like get it out straight away and do the whole thing in like one day, because I just really enjoyed it. Like linguistics, it was like solving puzzles. So because I loved it so much, you can do a few breadths of linguistics as a science degree, but I was like, no, I want to do like my whole degree on this, because it's just amazing. And what I learned from all my years racing my bike was that, okay, maybe like I could have gone into medicine, for example, and most of my friends actually, like so many of my friends went into medicine, and there was a bit of FOMO, like, oh, should I? Like, I could. And what I learned from cycling was that following your heart and like chasing your dreams and like what you love, your passion, that's what you should do. So I mean, my friends love medicine, but that wasn't really what I loved. And I really liked maths and computer science, but then once I felt that love for linguistics, I'm like, nah, I've got to listen to that. And I swapped my whole degree. And then because in arts you can pick two majors, then I also picked geography. I went through the list and I'm like, oh yeah, looks good, looks good. Oh, geography. I remember I did that back in year 10 and I loved it. So yeah, I picked that as my other major. And then because Movistar, that was my previous team, and they spoke Spanish like at the dinner table, on the radio sometimes, in the team bus. So I was like, I really want to learn Spanish so I can talk with my teammates and like make the most of this. Because one of the reasons I picked Movistar for so many reasons, and they were great in a lot of ways, but one of the pros, not a con, a pro was that I would get to learn Spanish. So I thought, I have to make the most of this. Other people pay all this money to go spend a year in, for example, in year 12, I did French, and a lot of my friends, paid to go to France and, what's it called? Like an exchange, and you try and learn
Change
the
to the
language.
exchange.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to learn it quickly. And here I was getting to do it like without paying for it. I was actually getting paid for it. So I was like, I'm going to make the most of this. So I did a diploma in Spanish on the side. So to try and, because the first year with Movistar, I hadn't done the diploma. And by the end, I didn't race that much with them, which was a shame, because I also didn't spend as much time as I could have. But I could like communicate. I tried my best to learn at home, Duolingo. I'd like use word reference and write like diaries just to myself in Spanish. But my grammar was really bad. So then it was nice when I had to stay home for the start of 2023. Then I actually went to university for Spanish, and a lot of the intensive subjects, that was all Spanish. So I came back and I'm like, oh, guys, listen, I can actually speak now. But now the sad thing is I've kind of forgotten it again. So I think I need to ask my team to room with Mariah. So then when we're roommates, then we can speak Spanish.
Well, you are you are in Girona, so perhaps strike conversations with the locals.
You have to be careful. You don't want to strike a conversation in Castellano with the wrong local, because they speak Catalan here. That's the the first language. But
Oh, right. Yes, that would
there
be a
is
big no. Yes.
there is a Pilates class. I've worked it out at my local gym. It doesn't say on the timetable who takes what class, but there's one of the maybe 3 or 4 Pilates instructors does the classes in Castellano. So I go to Walter's classes, so then I can actually. I'm already really uncoordinated and bad at anything that resembles dancing. And Pilates, I know it's not dancing, but it's still too close to dancing for my liking. And I say that because you cannot underestimate how bad I am at anything like that. So anyway, I'm bad enough when I can understand what's going on. So then when I go to the Catalan classes and I'm just trying to copy the lady next to me who if the instructor's at the front of the class and they're doing it perfectly, then and I'm in the back in the corner because I'm really awful. I don't want I just like hiding in the back doing my
Yeah.
own. And so the lady next to me can hardly see Eva, and say she's doing the exercise at like a 6 out of 10 if you had to rate her, because she's copying the instructor, and she probably can't see that well either, or maybe she's not like perfectly flexible. And then I'm trying to copy her, and I'm definitely not flexible or anything. So by the time you get to me, I think I'm doing completely different exercises. So I have fun, but I prefer the Spanish classes that I have like friends to go to.
uh, very good. Yeah, that yeah, that's that yeah, that's an hurdle with the that fact that you have to Spanish and Catalan is different, so yeah, you have to be careful
Yeah.
not to offend anyone. I wanted to kind of take us back to racing, because I wanted to have your opinion, have your take on the future of women's cycling, because you have obviously you have more experience than most in the riding the pro peloton, and I mean, where do you see professional women's cycling going uh, in terms of growing, in terms of being more represented in the media, or being more inclusive? What is your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, it's a really exciting time for women's sports. Was it just like a couple days ago that the first woman finished the Barkley marathons? And I thought that was
Yes, yeah, of course.
amazing because I'm not into ultra running, so I'm not, on the niche sites following it. And I mean, the Barkley marathons, that's already very hard to follow. They do that on purpose. So to think that, like, someone like me, I mean, I like sport and I like women's sport, but I'm not sitting there looking for it, and I saw it everywhere. So it's so cool already, just the exposure and interest just exploding. And especially, I agree, in women's cycling, it's just taking off like a rocket. And I think people have been saying that for a number of years now. And I remember when I first turned professional in 2020 with Tupco Silicon Valley Bank, people were already saying to me, like my teammates, my older teammates, like, "Oh, you're coming
Mhm.
into this like at the right time. Like you're really lucky." And I think I am because, yeah, it's just ever since then, every single year it just gets better and better. And the number of people back home in Australia. I mean, maybe this is a bad time to say it now that we don't have GCN, RIP GCN. But the number of
Yeah,
people back home in Australia trying to, follow the racing and caring about the racing, and not just because I'm in it. Like I'm not even in most of the races, and they're still messaging me about women's racing. So yeah, that's really cool to see. I can see it just in my own circles, but also the Tour de France. I think that's just made such huge difference. Not only are so many more fans getting to see the sport, like new fans coming into the sport, but also I think maybe the most special part is the little kids that can see themselves racing one day. I mean, hardly any of them, let's face it, like not everyone's going to be a pro cyclist. Most people don't want to be a pro cyclist, but the fact that they can look at
exactly.
a
Yeah,
peloton and think, I can do that one day, I think that's so special because, yeah, I mean, when I was a little kid, once I found out cycling was a sport, I didn't dream of riding in the Tour de France because it wasn't a thing. Like I barely watched the Tour de France, and it wasn't because I didn't like watching cycling. I did. I just couldn't relate to the men. I mean, it was cool that they had the tour, and Kidal was amazing and everything, but it's just not quite the same when you look at the
exactly. Yeah,
peloton and just you can't even imagine yourself being there because it's just impossible. So yeah, to think that little girls can, turn on the TV or go to the roadside in France and think I can be there one day, and they actually can be there one day. It's just incredible, and I think the level of competition is also going up and up because of that.
Yeah, that's very true. It's Tour de France, Femme avec Swift. Sorry, it's it kind of represented a turning point. I think with the amount of visibility, it's shown how the sport, the women's sport, has so much potential that brands need to invest more money in it, and also is raising the profile of the athletes, the teams, raising the level of competition as well. And as you mentioned, is making the riders that take part in the Tour de France Femme avec Swift kind of role models for future generations. So the exposure that the race is having is, well, is potentially inspiring the next generation of the next generations to come of women cyclists. So it's very powerful to have that visibility and also have the brands investing into the sport.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so,
That's why Annemiese was my role model when I was a kid. It was because she was the one that I could watch. I mean, it was only once every 4 years at the Olympics, but still, that's, you look up to the people that you can see and you can imagine being like them, and you can only, you can't be it if you can't see it. I think that's what they say.
exactly.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a
now
very
you
good way of putting it.
can see it.
So I wanted to ask you to take now to a more personal note. What are your personal goals and aspirations for the future, for your future? Or
Yeah,
perhaps on and off the bike, if you want.
I think, yeah, as I said, what I've learned so far is just to make the most of every moment. So I'll keep working as hard as I can. I don't like to think I'll get outworked. I listened to a podcast with the recent Zwift Academy winner, Maddie LaRue, and I really like that. She said the same thing, so now I'm just copying her. But I'm owning
Very
up to
good.
it. I'm copying her. She said, maybe I won't be the best, but like other people aren't going to beat me because they're working harder. And I like that attitude. Like, yeah, you can't be the best, but you can do your best. So
Exactly.
yeah, I just love pushing myself day in, day out, and always trying to, get better. And yeah, just making the most of riding my bike because I can ride my bike and I love riding my bike. So yeah, working my hardest and also making sure to enjoy it. Also, I feel like that maybe it sounds a bit, I know some people scoff at it, like not many, I don't think, because most people know how fun riding a bike is. But I do hear some people say like, oh, you're not meant to have fun. You're a professional. It's your job. Like, come on, you take it seriously. Don't go QM hunting. Like, you're here to work. You're here to be your best. And actually, QM hunting, okay, maybe I do like a 21-minute effort instead of a 20-minute effort. And then to get to another hill, maybe it takes me 30 minutes instead of 24 minutes recovery time. But I mean, that's not the difference between winning and losing, really. Like, it's all arbitrary numbers anyway. Like, why is 20 minutes going to make you better and 21 won't? So I think, I mean, I do always check with my coach first, but just making sure to try and have fun where I can as well, because I actually tend to perform better when I'm enjoying it. So yeah, have fun, work my hardest, and hopefully for this year, especially after the last few years, I just want to get a full season in with lots of race days and help my teammates and just put the last few years behind me so I can stop talking about how awful I mean, they've been good and bad, but you can stop talking about the setbacks of the last few years and start talking about the positives of these years. So yeah, I just want to have a good, healthy, fun year and keep working hard.
I mean, yeah, that's very good. I mean, I would say that the setbacks is what defines you, because you learn from them. You are able to build on that and look at those, perhaps the low moments, and see, well, that's where I was. This is where I am now, and like that has been an exponential growth from, not being able to ride my bike, not being able to exercise but have a heartbeat above 100. Like
I do
that's a
agree. Like,
massive growth in terms
yeah,
of
I think this
what
year,
you can do.
this year I won the Tour Down Under, and I
Hmm.
mean, I have no idea where I would have come if I didn't go through everything I went through last year. But I do think that not being able to race, like I was fit and healthy. I just, well, for at least the second half of the season. At the start, I was unfit, so I wasn't selected because I couldn't race. But then I wasn't selected just because I wasn't good enough. And I think just that burning desire to race and show that I was good enough, um, that just gave me so much motivation. And yeah, as I've said this whole podcast, I've always been so motivated and always worked my hardest. But just sometimes that subconscious, like that 1% extra I was giving every session, like on the bike, off the bike, I just had so much motivation and desire. And I think you're right in that the setback last year, maybe that did help me this year.
Yeah. Did you didn't mention about off the bike? Is there anything that you aim to achieve off the bike?
Yeah, off the bike I want to find some hobbies that aren't to do with cycling, but I am trying. I'm just not very good at this. So even I went on a podcast maybe a month ago, and actually Amy, the host, she asked me, now, do I have any hobbies in during off the bike? And the fact that I couldn't really answer her, like, like I walk around the city wall, I do Pilates, but I didn't really have a good answer. So that afternoon I was like, what should I do? I'm going to buy a coloring in book. Like, like a full, like a proper adult one, and got these like pencils. They're actually quite expensive. Anyway, they turned up, and I have been using it, but I love cycling so much that I always tend to use it with a race on
Okay.
like coloring in and then watching a race, or coloring in and listening to a podcast on cycling. So yeah, I'm still still like trying to find something. I did see some free salsa classes, I think they were called. I'm not really, as I said, I'm not into dancing at all, but I said to my teammates, like Kim and Anya, I said, if you come with me, then we'll go. And then I have to say, I was the one that suggested it. I was willing, as the worst dancer in the world, I was willing to go, but they both rejected me. So no dancing classes. I'm not brave enough.
Oh no.
But yeah, I
Oh no.
just yeah, I maybe I'll do some more studying. Actually, I do some coaching as well. I love that. So maybe I could. I did a coaching course, but not an actual degree. So yeah, I'll have to have a think. But I do miss.
Still working it out.
Yeah, I am enjoying also just chilling a bit, because yeah, last year was really intense with, like, I did so much university, and then as I said, I started to get a bit overwhelmed because it was fine when I wasn't writing, and then suddenly I was writing like a ton, and I was still doing so much
Yeah. Yeah.
university. So it
Very
has
good.
been nice to have a couple of months just, just coaching and writing. But yeah, maybe I'll do an online course.
Very good. So one of the aims of the podcast is trying to find as well what success looks for the people that I'm speaking with. So I wanted to ask you the question: what does success look like to you?
I think just being happy, and I mean, whether you're happy because your job is going well, or like you have great friends around you, or you just love your hobbies, whatever it is, being happy is number one, and normally you tend to do better in everything anyway when you're happy. So yeah, for me, being
Okay.
happy, that's success. And normally, yeah, maybe that comes with results on the bike, or comes with better power, or things like that. But yeah, being happy is number one, and then that leads to other good things. But it's the most important anyway. Even if you don't get the results, you spend 99.9% of the time like on the process anyway. Like, the number of hours you spend trying to sleep a lot, or eat enough, or ride really hard every day, or even, I don't know, get massages or stretch or travel to races, everything like that. You spend so much more time doing things like that than you actually spend, not just racing, but on the podium with your hands in the air or your teammates' hands in the air. Like, that's such a small percentage of your time that you have to enjoy the process and love what you're doing.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, that's a very good, powerful message about being happy with what you're doing, because that will impact the way you see the world, how you relate to other people, how you develop as well as a person. Sometimes it can be quite it's quite easy to say, well, being happy, but actually being happy, being in the moment, being content and grateful for what you have is also very important, and that's part of the process of being happy. So kind of we'll come to the point of the podcast that I started a tradition in podcast where a guest leaves a question for my next guest, not knowing who they are. So I have a question that was left for you from my previous guests. So the question is this one: if you could ask one question of a leader within the cycling industry, what would it be?
Oh, that's a hard question. I was hoping it would be like, what do you have for breakfast? That's easy. I always have toast. Oh, maybe I'd say, what are you doing to get to try and help more people from, underrepresented backgrounds or more women on bikes, yeah. What are you able to try and do, or what are your plans to try and get more
Very good.
people on bikes from around the world?
Very good. And what may I ask? Who would you ask this question to?
Oh, I mean, I think a lot of different brands are doing lots of different things. So I think asking it to anyone would be interesting. But yeah, even just the president of the UCI, anyone would be quite interesting to see the different strategies, and then you could come up with the more successful ones and spread them around.
Very good. Very good. So, Sarah, it comes to the point where now is your turn to put someone else on the spot. What question would you like to leave to my next guest?
Oh, well, on another podcast I listen to, they always say, what scares you the most? And it's always really interesting to hear the different answers. Some people say it's for like endurance sports, and some people say like an injury, some people say regret. So what scares you the most, and what are you doing about it? Like, maybe it's okay to be afraid, or maybe you are doing something about that. So, yeah.
Very good. That's a very good question. I think from many other questions I've listened to, that's a very good question to ask to my next guest. So with that, Sarah, thank you very much for taking the time to write Success. It's been a pleasure getting to know more and getting to know your journey and the resilience that you have, and what your aspirations for the future. So thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for letting me chat away.
Wow, what an amazing person. Sarah's story is one of passion, perseverance, and the pursuit of happiness. It serves as an inspiration to cyclists and non-cyclists alike, showcasing the universal values of hard work, resilience, and importance of community. Now, before you go, please remember to subscribe to the podcast and tune in to my next week's episode, where Sarah's question will be answered by my next guest. Until then, thanks for listening.